so much, mate. Today I'm going to talk about a research project I've been doing with the Australian Communications Consumer Action Network. It's a team that includes Professor James Avanakakis from WSU, Western Sydney University, and Dr. Puneet Jagasia. We only started in July 2018. So unlike Bingo, we don't have amazing kind of data to show you. So we're just kind of giving you some context for the project and a working kind of scheme that we're developing and open to kind of feedback on. So the research project, what I really like about it is it kind of jumps on some of the things that Melanie and Bingo have mentioned. It's about, ACAN's kind of remit is consumer advocacy and consumer awareness. So we're really coming at it from, there's a problem, which has been really wonderfully kind of outlined. What are some of the key things we can do to kind of help Australian consumers in this moment? One of the main things we're doing is looking at a consumer guide for data access. And what I really want to do today is talk about why data access is kind of useful, talk about our kind of ranking mechanism, and I won't do too much scene setting, but I just want to flag that really quickly. What I did want to note is there's been a bunch of surveys in 2017 about personal data in Australia. Kind of conveniently around the time of Cambridge Analytica. It wasn't responding to Cambridge Analytica, these things just kind of happened to fit in. Digital Rights in Australia, University of Sydney, the OAIC do their kind of regular kind of survey, and the Consumer Policy Research Centre came out with consumer data and the digital economy. What I'll kind of race through is there's attitudes to privacy and knowledge and habits, and I'm not going to kind of repeat what has been said already, but basically, as kind of Melanie pointed out, Australians are more concerned about the personal data. People don't feel in control. People are really concerned about corporate use of data, like particularly concerned, more so than government. Uncomfortable with information being shared with third parties. Not much comfort with current social media business models. We don't like targeted advertising. We kind of know that stuff happens. We know that companies can follow our activities around, but we don't know anything more detailed. Like we don't know that mobile apps tend to collect more data. And we're kind of keen to learn more as well. Like more people want to know more, which is kind of an obvious thing. The privacy paradox is key. We don't read terms and conditions, and we know how to adjust privacy settings, but we don't tend to do that regularly. It's just something we do occasionally, or, when Cambridge Analytica happens and everybody goes, oh shit, and then runs to Facebook. So it's an interesting overall picture. We feel uncomfortable about the use of data by companies, but we don't really know what's going on or what strategies are effective to manage how it spreads. So data access isn't the whole solution. There's a range of solutions that can be kind of advocated for this approach, but we needed to focus on a small slice of the pie for a 1-year research project. So, it's interesting. Like, there's a big kind of research thing saying that we need to remove individualization, that consumers shouldn't be responsible for their data. We should be looking at data minimization. We should be looking at regulation. But data access is presented as a solution to some of these problems. Facebook has a download your information tool, which is promoted as a kind of flip side of Facebook's business model. We're giving power to the consumer. And the consumer data right is being sold as a solution to some of the problems around a data-driven economy. So, we're kind of thinking about there are some benefits to data access. There's transparency, fostering competition in markets, and providing data literacy to consumers. But it's also a central feature of legislation, to go to the GDPR directly. It's a right under the GDPR, it's a right and to some degree in the APP, and it's going to be an extended right under the consumer data right. So the other part of this project is why is it so critical that we have access to our data, and what do consumers get out of that, right? Why? Most people don't access their personal information under the current APP provisions. So what would the CDR do differently? So the benefits are potentially oversold. So the Treasury's kind of come out and said it's going to improve the flow of information in the economy, support innovation, cost reduction, delivery of goods and services, support economic growth. But it's kind of got a big remit, the CDR. But we know that only a third of Australians know they can access their personal information. We've got no data on actual requests. So will consumers actually engage with the consumer data right? Do they even care about existing access rights? That's kind of what's coming out of our research. The other question is, are companies compliant now with APP 12, with the right to data, the personal information access? So, and will they actually be compliant with CDR? This is data from the EU, finding that compliance with the right of access is a mess in EU. We're not sure what the status is in Australia. And digital platforms have complied with the letter but not the spirit of GDPR. So there's a question about to what extent, compliance overrides broader ethical imperatives. So one possible solution we're workshopping at the moment is kind of setting data access standards. So the APP 12 entities have to provide personal information on request. The information has to be about an identified individual, et cetera, et cetera. So our companies are focusing on the communication sector. So we've captured some digital platforms, some telcos and some fitness trackers. Our baseline is like, we're just going to try and ask for our data under APP 12 and see what comes back. Importantly, this is not just like about whether they deliver it, but thinking about the consumer experience. So is there an easy website to access? Do we have to speak to multiple people? Do frontline staff understand the request we're making? So thinking about, the extent to which under APP 12, these requests are kind of able to be facilitated. And then a kind of higher standard. So we've got the basic APP standard and then a kind of ideal standard, which may not be achievable to some companies, but kind of thinking about setting standards. We know that APP 12 has limitations, so the consumer data right goes beyond that. I'm happy to talk about how that does, if anybody's not familiar. But we're also thinking about, this higher standard. So beyond compliance with CDR and corporate practice, what should consumers expect from data custodians in terms of access? So we've developed these standards based on existing legislation and on prominent issues raised by these existing surveys. So standards we've kind of come up with: data portability, can you move your data? Scope of data provision, so can you access all your data or just some data? Transparency, so is there a clear data policy that tells you what data is being collected? Ease of data access, is it kind of easy to access this data in terms of consumer experience? Employee understanding, so if you go to frontline staff, they're able to assist you with your request or understand the request you're making. An additional request, which is, can you ask for more data, like if you're not satisfied with what they've got? We're thinking of ranking these as like high, medium and low. So to give you an example, ranking data portability, a high ranking would be that not only is your data portable, but you don't need technical kind of literacy to kind of port your data. A medium would be like your personal data is portable, but it requires like you to understand JavaScript and manage that. And a low would be no data portability is provided. So thinking about different standards, we're workshopping these, so open to feedback if anybody wants to talk further. We understand that it's the real world, so best practice, honestly, based on the standards we have, is not going to be achievable for most companies, but we're hoping that companies can achieve good. The gold standard is probably, like literally a gold standard, like most, market pressures, etc. The economy means that it's going to be hard to kind of willingly hand over a range of kind of data to consumers, but we're looking at seeing, particularly which companies come out as kind of good data custodians who are able to be transparent with consumers. So that's pretty much an overview for the project. It's been pretty broad, but happy to go into the time limit, I guess.